We are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Health Coach Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday we talk about tips, tools, and resources to help your health coaching business. This week, I'm joined with our founder, Reed Davis. How are you doing today, Reed?
Fantastic. Thank you, Jess. Good to be here with you,
Yes.
the crowd.
So this week we are talking about FDN nutritional approaches for children, kind of piggybacking off of our conversation last week. So I wanted to really dig a little further into more of the diet aspect of the dress protocol that FDNs use, specifically targeting children. This week, we are going to be giving away our diet check record sheet again, like we did last week, but we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can use it. And of course, you can always pair that with an MT diet from mtdiet.com. It's a metabolic typing diet. And if you guys would like that, you just go ahead and type the word kids in the comments below, and we will send that to you. So let's get started. Let's talk about nutritional approaches for children.
Okay, let's do it.
So I know you and I talked a little bit yesterday about this. I think the first area I'd love to get into is, so let's say you have more than one child and you're trying to be super healthy, but you've got a picky eater as one child, and then you have one who will eat anything, or maybe they're both picky eaters, but they pick completely separate things. Yeah. How would you approach that from, like, as a clinician working with a parent who might be trying to figure out the best avenue with their kid?
Interesting. I was that picky eater, and my parents tried everything. They would meet with the pediatrician. He won't eat. He won't eat, and all he wants is peanut butter sandwiches. He won't eat anything. But I grew up, I swear to God, on peanut butter sandwiches. And I can't tell you the ways they tried to torture me to eat my wholesome dinner. My mom was a great cook, she made stuff. I just didn't like eating, but I've a lot of water under the bridge since then. Now I eat anything and everything. Matter of fact, I love food. So something happened, and I actually know what it is. But with kids, they're just like adults, and they're made out of food. So what you put in them is what they're going to grow up and absorb, and every cell, tissue, organ system in the body, all the proteins, fats, carbs. That's what makes people. Makes big ones out of little ones is when you feed them. So what's going in diet, probably, other than air and water, probably the most important thing you could do for a kid. Kids are like grown-ups in that they have a genetic code that is influenced by signaling from the environment and their lifestyle. And their lifestyle begins with food, begins with getting up in the morning and eating breakfast. So it's really critical you get this right. So fortunately, the good news is that we have learned about getting the diet right, and it for adults and children too. It applies to children. We call it metabolic typing. So basically, you have your proteins, fats, and carbs, and they should be, obviously, let's just get it out of the way that these are very high quality, nutritious, not processed foods. You want organic, real food type stuff. So we're just going to assume that everyone knows that already. We're not talking about crap out of a bag or a box. We're talking about you go to the grocery store, you buy real stuff, and you prepare it, and that's what you feed your kids most of the time. Like 99% of the time, that'd be a good thing. So if you're eating that way, first of all, then you have to get two things right. You only have to get two things right. One is the ratio of protein, fat, and carb. Now, that means basically meat and vegetables and maybe some fruits. These everyone I think knows what proteins, fats, and carbs are. When you get the ratio right, you're going to produce energy on a cellular level that works. And kids are going to be different. And you mentioned a really tough thing because you might have one kid that's bouncing off the walls and one that's a couch potato. And that brings up the second nature of food, and that is how does it affect the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems? Because food, it's very interesting how this works. But so not only do you need to create energy on a cellular level, the protein, fats, and carbs ratios pretty much does that for you. Which proteins, fats, and carbs will help you balance out their nervous systems, the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic. The kid bouncing off the walls has an active fight flight sympathetic nervous system. And the kid who's a couch potato has a very activated parasympathetic, the sort of rest and digest type. And what we want, of course, is balance in all these things. And so it starts off with the protein, fat, and carb ratios, and then which ones matter because they'll you don't want to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system of a kid who's or of an adult, doesn't matter, of someone who's already sympathetic dominant. You want to always strengthen the weaker side. Personally, I'm parasympathetic dominant. I'm a rest and digest guy. I relax really well. Now, I also get a lot of work done. I'm a steady Eddie. The good thing about parasympathetics like me is they're like turtles. They just keep going and going and going. Endless sort of ability to just keep working, and into the wee hours. We get up early, work all day. As long as you're fueling me with my meat and my fat, as long as you're giving me the right fuel, then I can just keep going and going. The sympathetic dominance, they typically might need a few more carbs to keep them up, but they're more like the tortoise. They can go like hell, but they'll need longer bouts of rest in between, or at least shutting down a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's the production of energy and there's the distribution of that energy to the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, that's such a great way to look at it, right? Because I think when you really break down the type of food that you're eating and then what it's doing to the body, right, then you can start to, I guess, maybe figure out the differences depending on the person and how that person's body's interpreting that type of food. And then, like you said, if one is more parasympathetic versus sympathetic, then you know to strengthen the sympathetic side by adding in things that are going to stimulate that to balance out. I mean, that's kind of how I interpret it when I went through FDN.
Yeah, that's good, Jess. Yeah, so examples are, just about any time of day when I'm hungry, I need to be fed. I need that fat and protein, and you don't want my blood sugar going down because I get hungry and I get a little bit cranky. But as soon as I'm fed, I'm back to up to full energy, full steam ahead. I also feel pretty good and I don't crave anything. So my wife, she's more of a sympathetic dominant and a better carb metabolizer. So I call her my squirrel. 'Cause she's always squirreling away little things for later, like nuts and seeds and stuff. And they're everywhere. They're just, I could open up a drawer. That's how I say my little squirrel's been here. Got something for later, or what the hell's with that? I want some meat and I want it's got to have some fat on it. Now, I like my vegetables too. I love any cooked vegetable. I eat a wide assortment of things. So I'm not, stuck on any one, but it's got to have a lot of protein and fat for me. Now, again, as soon as I have it, my energy's right back. And I just keep going and going. Go outside and work all day in the yard, or even sitting at my desk. I just have a lot more mental focus, energy when I'm fueled correctly. Kids are no different. Getting back to kids, it's just that they can't tell you, but you have to be observant, and you have to try playing around with it, or just go to mtdiet.com and help them take that test. It's a questionnaire, covers physiological traits, dietary habits, and it covers psychological traits too. That's how you help figure out that nervous system thing. But anyone can go to mtdiet.com, take that test, and you get some menus. You get more importantly than anything is the diet check record sheet. Have you found that to be useful?
Oh, for sure. For those of you who may just be joining us today, we're talking about FDN nutritional approaches for kids, but this could be used for anybody. And one thing that we're giving away today, if you type the word kids in the comment below, we'll send you our diet check record sheet. When you use that, for one, it's really great to kind of take a step back and look at your food and how it's actually affecting you. And when you pair that with the MT diet, I found it to be super helpful, especially for somebody who may not have a clear understanding of how their food might be affecting them on a daily basis. I actually was just having this conversation with a neighbor of mine yesterday, and explaining to her, like, if you just keep a small record of what you're eating, you may not even realize what you're eating and how that's affecting you. The diet check record sheet is just kind of laid out and has such clear indications the way that it's been put together. You don't need to guess, which is what I love about it. And it's such an easy tool that you can use with anybody. And you don't have to run any labs, or doesn't really necessarily cost a ton of money for somebody to do that, even to pair it with the MT diet. So it's a really great first step that I think anybody could be utilizing, which is why we wanted to give that away today.
Yeah, that's good. So the diet check record sheets have a place on the left-hand side for each. There's one per day. Use one sheet per day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, assuming you eat 3 meals. And this would be like an ordinary. There's lots of situations where someone might not be eating 3 meals, or something just is different. But if you have a meal, and I mean a meal, where you sit down and there's a plate of food, and you can pretty much just think of it as a pie chart. We don't measure calories. We don't count anything like that. We don't count grams or stuff. We look at the plate, and if you had a steak on one side and you had a pile of vegetables on the other side, you would just look at it and go, well, that's about 50-50. 50% of the plate is full of meat and fat, so protein carries its own fat with it for the most part. Nice juicy steak. It could be salmon that you've cooked in a little oil. That's kind of a fatty fish. It could be chicken, but chicken doesn't have as much fat, the white meat, so it needs to have some dark meat in there, so that you've got enough protein and fat on one side, and you have your high quality complex nutrient dense carbohydrates on the other side. Again, we're just assuming already know about nutrient dense food and quality fresh produce and things like grass-fed beef, all these things. We're just assuming you got that down. So you could look at that plate. It's 50-50. Half of it was nice combination of vegetables, cooked. You could throw a couple raw. We're not worried about any of that stuff right now. You could have now a side salad that would obviously add to the amount of fresh carbohydrates that are in the meal. But you basically want to think of a plate and about half. Now, if you're a protein type, or what we would call a fast oxidizer or parasympathetic dominant, you could actually stand more. I mean, we have people that are 70, 80, 90% protein and fat, believe it or not. That's just what is the fuel mixture for them. And I'm right up there with them with a lot of protein and fat, because I need it to produce energy at the right rate and quality and quantity in my cells. And when you have that, then your cells, they don't have to be taught what to do. Again, this applies to kids too. The other thing about kids and nutrition is, depending on how they're showing up, you've got to do the food sensitivity testing, because they don't associate a food with a reaction as well as an adult does. Even adults, we just test them. But some foods are causing reactions that are very difficult to see in the short term. In other words, you could feed them a meal and watch them for 2 hours and go, I can't tell if they're reacting or not. But within 2 days, you could tell they're reacting to something. Some of these things are just very delayed. And so that's why you got to run the test. So we like to use these mediated release tests. There's lots of different ways to skin that cat, to run the labs and find out what they're sensitive to in one way or another.
Yeah, and that's really just meant to kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to get rid of things that may be causing internal stress, to give their body a chance to, develop and function properly. I did want to go back and ask you though, when you talk about, how many meals a day somebody's having, especially for kids, like how important do you feel that it is to make sure that they're getting enough nutrition as they're developing? Because I know as you progress through your adolescence, like I remember being kind of a bottomless pit of needing to eat all of the food. Whereas my sister was kind of the opposite. And we used to joke because she's a very skinny person and I was a little bit heavier. But she struggled with weight gain her whole life. And we've had to work on her health and figure out her other issues going on. So it wasn't just the fact that she wasn't eating enough, but I wonder if that might have contributed also to making sure she has enough nutrition, or kids who are like that are very picky eaters, to make sure that they're eating enough and getting enough calories and stuff like that so that they can develop properly.
Yeah, well, it's very important that they eat, and because they're made of food and they need the energy, and they need to. One way you could look at it in terms of energy too is blood sugar levels. You've got to maintain those because they can fluctuate for a number of reasons, but not eating is sure a big one. So basically, eating is to fuel the tank. You want to fill up the tank with enough of the right fuel mixture to so that they can burn it for energy for the next until the next meal. Basically that's the deal. And again, all things being equal, not having any blood sugar, carbohydrate metabolism issues, and these other things, fill the tank and see how long they get out of it. There could be some experimentation. And this is another thing where you'll find, depending on the fuel mixture, they'll get more out of one tank of fuel than the other tank of fuel. So if they're a fast oxidizer like me, I burn very quickly, metabolize everything really fast. So that means you got to put some big logs on that fire.
Yeah.
You got to put some protein and fat so that it can burn. So if you give me carbohydrates, I burn them up so quickly. I'm craving. I just start getting cravings, and I get, I just want some meat, because I know that's what's going to fuel my tank for my fuel mixture. And so if you have kids that are craving meat and you think it's not good for them, try giving it to them and see if they don't have three things. The three criteria is they're going to have more energy to get them to the next meal. And it's going to be a solid energy. They actually like playing. They're going to, even if it's just thinking and doing their homework or something, to have enough energy to do it. Another thing, obviously, is they're satiated. The right fuel mixture satiates you. Why would you crave anything? Why would you be having cravings for whatever it is, whether it be the sugary stuff or the salty stuff? Mostly people are going to be somewhere on one of those two spectrums. So you shouldn't be craving. You shouldn't be craving anything. You should be fully satisfied. You should have the energy I just talked about, and you should have a sense of well-being. Because with good blood sugar levels and stuff, you should be in a fairly good mood most of the time. That's the natural state for a person. Whistle while you work, sing in the shower, stuff like that. We're really designed to be happy creatures. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't apply if you're getting in arguments and fussing stuff. So there's things about the world that could be pissing you off, but it shouldn't be your diet.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be related to your diet. Your diet could keep you pretty normal.
So when it comes to blood sugar with children, that obviously is a huge indicator for anyone's health, but for a child especially, um, then we start to go into the realm of there being kind of this epidemic of obesity and diabetes in younger and younger people. Do you really feel like focusing on the diet aspect of things could change that very quickly with the child so that they don't see these long-term effects moving into their adulthood?
Well, it certainly would be the right thing to do. As to how fast or quickly it would work, it might take a generation because it's taken 3 or 4 to ruin things.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, there were, I'm almost 70. There was no fat kids. There might have been one, and it was because they had a true sort of genetic issue or around something. And but you didn't have all of the obesity that you have today. Every kid, You could count the ribs. And I was like that till I was 30 years old.
Wow.
Just really skinny. Yeah, I finally started eating better and learning more about food and things. But and I could afford better food. But no, you have blood sugar is a big part of it. But I think I was just trying to say that absolutely you could reverse almost anything if you start with the metabolic type diet. Where no matter what people have all these inflammatory conditions, they have headaches and bad skin, and they're obese, and they're the blood sugar problems and things. And yeah, of course, diet's huge. So and I said it would take some generations to fix because it has taken some generations where kids are now predisposed
Yeah.
because of all the crap their parents ate. And
Hmm.
again, that has taken it, but it's happened in my lifetime. This obesity epidemic did not exist when I was 10. Not even if you
Yeah.
go back, I heard someone on TV say this. If you go back and look at the picture of teenagers and young adults at Woodstock, so there's a movie made in 1968 about the Woodstock rock festival in upstate New York, and I was running around naked pretty much. There was no fat people there either.
Yeah.
And so that's just in our generation. So it could be reversed, absolutely.
Yeah. No, and I think with FDN, what we've learned when you go through the course is that, it's it's a simple track that you go through with somebody, but it's bumpy because there's a million different things that could come up, right? But if we stick through that same program through DRESS, where we look at diet, rest, exercise, stress management, supplementation, and we start with diet. I always tell people we always start with diet because you have to see what's going in. And if you can fix what's going in, you're probably halfway to a better life anyway, especially with children.
Yeah, that's right. Just, there's, again, it's your genetic potential,
Hmm.
which has been reduced in some of these newer generations. I think their potential to be fat and obese has increased, you know, and yet, just going back to the main point that it's your genetic potential and the signaling that your genes are getting. That's called epigenetics.
Hmm.
Epigenetics is the sort of science behind the signaling that your genes are receiving from what? Lifestyle and environment. If you live in a good environment, clean air and water and, uh, you know, things like that, sunshine and, outside. And then you add the plant, the lifestyle. Do you go out and play every day? Do you spend time in the sun? Do you get a good night's sleep? Do you reduce stress? Have a way of dealing with the stressors of modern life? And food, obviously, such a tremendous day in, day out signal.
Hmm.
So your signaling from food it's just remarkable. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
change your whole life around when you get it right, and it doesn't have to take forever for an individual. It depends on what problem. So I've had kids with ADD and ADHD, and it went away in a couple weeks. Like
Wow.
they just all of a sudden got their focus back. They got their ability to sit down and pay attention back. They got their excitability back. They're not, poking at the kid next to them in class, although they might not be in class these days, but which sucks. But yeah, they completely come down. Or asthma. I've seen kids with
Hmm.
asthma where no more asthma. They go on to become the athletes that they were meant to be, and these kind of things. So I've just seen remarkable in adults and kids. But it's fun to work with kids because they respond very quickly.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, faster than adults. And of course, we're the boss, so we should be. So they eat what you tell them to eat. They would eat what you put in front of them,
Of course.
or they go to bed hungry. Yeah.
Well, I know it was a few weeks back, maybe a little over a month, you had done a podcast with the Holistic Kids Show where you
Yeah.
guys talk about what you eat matters. So this is totally on topic. We're going to put a link in the comments so that people can watch that show because I think they have a YouTube version and there's an audio version, but I did catch a little bit of it. And it's so nice to see children, you know, having their own podcast and taking the show and really kind of bringing this to light to other children, because I'm sure that was super fun to do.
It was a riot. I get interviewed twice a week, sometimes a little more, and I'll do a podcast. Any health podcast, by the way, if you looking for a guest, I can speak on a lot of subjects in the health space, and so I showed up for this podcast, and it was hosted by kids, and it was fantastic. It was really great.
Yeah, I just love the fact that they're, you know, they already know that it's such an important thing for diet, and then they found somebody to come on and explain it. Oh, such a great show. Yeah, but yeah, if anybody's interested in booking Reed, you can just reach out to us. He's all over the place. If you just search Reed Davis, he's on tons of podcasts of all different kinds of things. And I know that the kids' health is kind of a hot topic. We saw this last week with a bunch of people commenting. Whoever's still watching with us, if you have any questions, we have a few minutes left. Don't forget to comment kids below, and you'll get the diet check record sheet. But yeah, we had a pretty good draw of people who are interested in this topic. So I want us to keep talking about kids probably over the next few months for sure, because it's a big deal.
Let me mention that on the diet check record sheet, which is our free gift today, it'll give you a clue about what to look for. Again, it's the energy, the sense of well-being, and the satiation, the lack of cravings, and feeling great off your meal. So that's over on the right. There's all these things you could check off to sort of grade that. But on the left is going to be your foods you ate for that previous meal. So you eat a meal and you write down what you had. If it's bacon and eggs and toast, you write down bacon, eggs, and toast. And then and then you wait about 90 minutes to 2 hours, somewhere between that meal and the next meal, when you should be still well fueled. If you filled up the tank for breakfast, you should still have plenty of fuel to go to the next meal. And so then what you do, depending on your answers. So if your answers are no, I didn't have the best energy. No, I did have some cravings. No, you had some of the negative factors. Then you would adjust the meal. You go back to the meal and you go, which way should I go now? Should I go with more protein and fat, or should I go with more, complex, high quality, nutrient dense carbohydrates? And so you'll start dialing that. You might just kind of have an instinct that I think it's the protein. I think I need more protein and fat and less carbohydrate. Dial that up.
Yeah.
And then do then the next day you'll notice. And if you do that for enough meals, you will notice patterns. And so, because we're not trying to fix one thing, we're trying to notice a pattern of, if your pattern is more energy, more satiation, more sense of well-being, that's a damn good pattern. That's what you're looking for.
So let's think about it from a sense, if you have a picky eater kid then, and you go through this diet check record sheet with them, do their MT diet, you kind of have a sense that, maybe they're a little bit more sympathetic. So you're not giving them as many carbs, but maybe they should be getting some more carbs. Maybe they should be getting a little bit more food in their meals. Like, what would you, just hypothetically?
Hypothetic, you start with, are they good eaters, or are they, like you mentioned, are they just eating a bunch of crap? Because kids eat crap. They get up and, left to their own devices, they're going to take the sweet and sugary and colorful and fun and whatever it is type. They just start with breakfast. I've told this story 100 times, and you might have heard it, but I had a contact of mine. She was coming in our office, and she was the principal for 5 different charter schools, and she went to a different one each day of the week, Monday through Friday. And she sat in sometimes on disciplinary action. So where there was a parent-teacher conference from a kid that was, poking around with other kids, not paying attention, supposedly ADD or something like that, behavior. And she started asking the kids what percentage, started asking the kids, directly to the kid, what did you eat for breakfast? And 100% of the misbehaving kids were eating crap. They were eating Pop-Tarts and colorful cereal and just SHIT is what I call it. So that is a clue that food matters. And I'm not saying that all kids who eat that are going to misbehave, but all the ones who are misbehaving, that's what they were eating. And so you have to start with something that you would just in your locale and location, wherever you're at, um, try to put something wholesome together in sufficient quantities that they actually fuel the tank, and then see how they do. And it could take some experimentation, or you can just go to mtdiet.com and take the test on there.
Yeah, it's such a great tool. You just put that together with the diet check record sheet, and it really gives you a good, clear option of what to do. And then if you do the food sensitivity test, like you're really starting to hone in on the diet there by just those 3 things. I think it's a really great first step with any clients.
I want to give a shout out to Christy Lee. Haven't seen you in a long time, honey.
She said, "Reed is the boss." Awesome. Thank you, Christy. That. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. And, thank you all so much for joining us. We've had quite a few people who've stuck around through the whole show. This is Health Coach Tip Tuesday, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central, or 3 p.m. Eastern. And today we were talking about nutritional approaches for children with our FDN founder, Reed Davis. For those of you who'd like to get our download today, the diet check record sheet, you just comment the word kids below, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Thank you so much, Reed. This was really fun, and I look forward to more topics like this and hopefully more questions from our audience so that we can help those health coaches help their clients.
Great job, Jess, doing this show. I love it. You're doing a fantastic job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Okay, have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.